The courtroom fell silent as Rachel Bennett rose from her chair, her hands shaking, but her eyes steady. For 5 years she had quietly collected evidence, while her husband drained their accounts, forged her signature, and buried them in debt. Now, as Jason smirked beside his expensive lawyer, Rachel pulled out a single document from her worn leather folder.
"Your Honor," she said, her voice gaining strength with each word. "Before we continue, I need to submit this into evidence." As she held up the paper, her husband's face drained of color.
The $2 million loan that was about to destroy her life was about to become his undoing instead. Before we dive into this story, I'm curious, where are you watching from right now, and what time is it there? Drop your answer in the comments below. If you enjoy stories about justice being served, hit subscribe. Rachel Bennett had always been good with numbers. Before marrying Jason, she'd been a rising financial analyst at a prestigious firm in Chicago. Her colleagues had been shocked when she stepped back to support her husband's real estate development business. "He needs me," she'd explained. "It's our dream." That was 5 years ago. Now, at 42, Rachel managed their household finances from the sunlit office of their lakeshore home, while Jason handled the investments and business dealings. From the outside, they were the perfect couple. Jason drove a sleek black Mercedes, Rachel wore designer clothes to charity galas, and their beautiful Victorian home appeared in a local architecture magazine. But lately, something felt off. Rachel noticed it first in small ways: a bank statement with transactions she didn't recognize, credit card bills with charges from cities Jason hadn't mentioned visiting. When she asked, he always had explanations that made just enough sense. That Chicago hotel charge. "I took a client to dinner there. Must have forgotten to mention it." Her phone buzzed with a text from Jason. "Dinner at Morton's tonight, celebrating a new deal." Rachel smiled, but felt a familiar twist of unease. More celebrations meant more spending. Just yesterday, she'd noticed their savings account was lower than it should be. When she mentioned it, Jason had kissed her forehead and said, "Don't worry about it. Markets are fluctuating." As she organized their mail, Rachel paused at an envelope from First National Bank, a bank they didn't use. She opened it to find a loan statement for $275,000, with both their names listed as borrowers. Rachel's heart raced. She didn't remember signing for this loan. She slipped the statement into her desk drawer beneath her planner. It wasn't the first strange financial document she'd found. In fact, tucked away in a locked file box hidden in her closet was a growing collection of papers that didn't add up: statements, notices, and loan documents with signatures that looked like hers, but that she had no memory of signing. Rachel closed the drawer as she heard Jason's key in the front door. She took a deep breath and pasted on a smile. Tonight at dinner, she would casually mention the statement, watch his reaction. The Rachel who had married Jason might have ignored her concerns, but the Rachel who had been keeping that secret file was starting to trust her instincts again. The call came on a Tuesday morning, while Rachel was planning their upcoming anniversary trip. "Mrs. Bennett, this is Sarah Davis from Midwest Capital. I'm calling about your loan payment." Rachel's hand froze on her calendar. "I'm sorry, what loan?" "The commercial real estate loan for Bennett Development. It's 3 weeks past due. The $2 million loan you and your husband signed for last quarter." The room seemed to tilt. $2 million. There must be some mistake. "I never." "Mrs. Bennett, I have the paperwork right in front of me with both signatures. Perhaps you could speak with your husband? This is the second missed payment." After hanging up, Rachel's fingers trembled as she searched Jason's desk. Nothing. She tried his filing cabinet. Locked. In 5 years of marriage, she'd never checked his private files. That invisible boundary now seemed like a red flag she'd been too trusting to see. That evening, Rachel placed their dinner plates on the table as Jason walked in, loosening his tie. "How was your day?" she asked, keeping her voice casual. "Productive. That development in Lincoln Park is finally moving forward." He kissed her cheek before sitting down. Rachel waited until he'd taken a few bites. I got a strange call today from Midwest Capital about a missed payment on a $2 million loan. Jason's fork paused halfway to his mouth, just for a second, but Rachel caught it. Oh, that, he continued eating. Just a formality for the new development, nothing for you to worry about. But they said I signed for it. I don't remember signing a $2 million loan, Jason. He laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. Remember our anniversary dinner at Alphonse? You signed it then. I explained everything. Rachel remembered the dinner. Candlelight, champagne, Jason sliding papers across the table. Just some routine paperwork for the business, he'd said. Need your signature as my spouse. She'd signed without reading, basking in the romantic evening. You said those were routine business documents. Jason's expression hardened. They were routine for my business, which pays for this house, your clothes, our lifestyle. He reached across the table for her hand. Rachel, you've never wanted to be bothered with business details. That's our arrangement, remember. That night, while Jason showered, Rachel searched his briefcase. Inside a folder labeled Lincoln Park Project, she found it, a loan agreement for $2 million with Midwest Capital, her signature next to Jason's. But something was wrong. The signature looked like hers, but the fluid loops of her name were slightly off. Rachel felt sick. She knew her own handwriting. This was close, but it wasn't hers. The shower stopped. Rachel quickly replaced the document and closed the briefcase. The next morning, she waited until Jason left for work before calling her old college friend, Olivia Ramirez, now a family attorney. Can we meet today? It's important. 3 hours later, in a coffee shop far from their neighborhood, Rachel slid the photocopy of the loan document across the table. That's not my signature, Liv. Olivia studied it. It's very close. But it's not mine. He forged it. And according to the bank, we've missed 2 payments. This is serious, Rachel. If he's forging your signature, what else is he doing? Rachel's throat tightened. I don't know, but I need to find out before you lose everything, Olivia finished, because with a joint filing like this, they can come after your assets too, not just his. On the drive home, Rachel's phone rang. Over the dashboard displayed Jason Mobile. Hey, she answered, forcing lightness into her voice. Where are you? His tone was sharp. Just running errands. Need anything? No, just checking. A pause. You know I love you. Right. Everything I do is for us. As Rachel hung up, she noticed a new text from an unknown number. Mrs. Bennett, this is Sarah Davis from Midwest Capital. Again, if we don't receive payment by Friday, we'll have to initiate collection proceedings. Rachel's hands gripped the steering wheel. The perfect life she thought she had was beginning to crack, revealing something dark beneath. I need to see all our accounts, Rachel told Jason that evening. Everything. Jason looked up from his laptop. Why the sudden interest? Because I got another call from Midwest Capital today. They're threatening collection proceedings. Jason. He closed his laptop. I told you not to worry about it. I'm handling it. Like you handled the last 2 payments? Rachel's voice shook. They said we've missed 2 payments on a loan I apparently signed for. I want to see our finances. All of them. Jason's expression shifted, that charming smile appearing. Honey, you've never needed to worry about this stuff before. The timing's just tight with the new project. The returns will be worth it. Show me. Rachel stood firm, surprising herself. Jason sighed dramatically. Fine, if it'll make you feel better. He opened his laptop and pulled up their joint account, the one Rachel already had access to. See, we're fine. What about the business accounts? The investments? Those are more complicated. He frowned. Listen. Do you trust me or not? The question hung in the air. 5 years ago, Rachel would have immediately said yes. Now, she hesitated. I need to understand our financial situation, she said carefully. Jason's jaw tightened. I've built everything we have while you've enjoyed the benefits. Now you want to question my methods. I'm not questioning. Yes, you are. He stood abruptly. I have a meeting. We'll discuss this later. After he left, Rachel sat in the silent house, her mind racing. The man who had just left wasn't the Jason she thought she'd married. He was defensive, controlling, and possibly criminal. Rachel drove to their bank with her name on their joint accounts. She requested statements for the past year. The banker's expression changed as she looked at the screen. Mrs. Bennett, are you sure you want the full history? The system shows your husband usually handles these matters. I'm sure. The statements revealed a disturbing pattern. Large sums moving in and out, transfers to accounts she didn't recognize. Yes, savings, which should have held over $400,000, was down to less than $30,000. Next, Rachel visited the county records office. As a property owner, she had the right to check for liens or loans against their home. What she found made her sink into a chair, legs weak. Their house, supposedly paid off according to Jason, had not one but two mortgages against it. The most recent, dated just 3 months ago, had both their signatures. Another forgery. Back home, Rachel waited until Jason left for his evening gym session before breaking the unspoken rule. She picked the lock on his filing cabinet using a tutorial she'd found online. Inside, she found loan documents, tax filings, bank statements, all showing a financial house of cards on the verge of collapse. Jason hadn't built a successful business. He'd created an elaborate shell game using new loans to pay off old ones. And he'd forged her signature on at least 7 different documents, making her equally liable for debts totaling over $5 million. Rachel's phone buzzed with a text from Jason, coming home early. Dinner. She quickly replaced everything, locked the cabinet, and tried to calm her racing heart. When Jason walked in 30 minutes later, she was chopping vegetables for a salad. About earlier, he said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. I'm sorry, you caught me at a stressful moment. Rachel forced herself not to stiffen at his touch. It's okay, I understand. The Lincoln Park project is going to change everything, he continued. 6 months from now, we'll be laughing about this tight spot. She turned in his arms, searching his face. Had she ever really known this man? Tell me the truth, Jason. Are we in financial trouble? For a moment, something like honesty flickered in his eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by confident assurance. We're in a temporary cash flow situation. It happens in real estate development all the time. He kissed her forehead. Trust me, Rachel. Have I ever let you down? She smiled and turned back to her chopping. Of course not. That night, while Jason slept, Rachel slipped out of bed and went to her closet. From behind a row of shoe boxes, she removed the locked file box she'd been keeping. Inside were copies of everything she'd found with questionable signatures, bank statements showing irregular activities, and notes she'd made of conversations with Jason about their finances. Rachel added the new documents she'd photographed that day. Then she took out her phone and texted Olivia. Need to talk. It's worse than I thought. As she closed the box and returned it to its hiding place, a realization settled over her. Her marriage, her lifestyle, her security. It was all built on lies, and when those lies collapsed, as they inevitably would, she would be legally bound to the consequences. Unless she found a way to protect herself first. Rachel slipped back into bed, turning away from the man she now realized was a stranger. Tomorrow, she would start building her case. The financial analyst she'd once been was still inside her, and that woman knew exactly how to follow a paper trail. The certified letter arrived 3 days later. Rachel signed for it while Jason was at work, her stomach knotting as she read the legal language. Midwest Capital was initiating foreclosure proceedings on the Lincoln Park property and pursuing personal assets as collateral. Rachel had 48 hours to decide her next move. If she confronted Jason, he would know she was investigating him. If she stayed silent, she risked losing everything when the financial house of cards collapsed. She chose a third option. "I've been thinking," she told Jason over dinner. "I should be more involved in our finances, in the business, like I used to be before we married." Jason's fork paused. "Why the sudden interest?" "It's not sudden. I miss using my financial skills." She kept her voice casual. "Plus, I could help with your cash flow issues." His eyes narrowed. "What cash flow issues?" "You mentioned being in a tight spot with the Lincoln Park project." Rachel sipped her wine. "My analysis background could be useful." Jason studied her face before his expression softened. "You're right. I could use your expertise." He reached for her hand. "I've been handling some complicated investments. Having another set of eyes would help." Rachel squeezed his hand, hiding her surprise at his easy agreement. "Great. When can you show me the books?" "Let me organize things first. How about next week?" Next week would be too late, and the clock was ticking on the Midwest Capital foreclosure, but Rachel nodded. "Perfect." The following morning, after Jason left, Rachel drove to Olson and Partners, the accounting firm listed on their tax returns. She'd never met their accountant, but Jason mentioned him often. "Barton handles everything," he'd say whenever tax questions arose. The receptionist looked confused when Rachel asked for Martin Olson. "We don't have anyone by that name here." "But this is the firm that handles the Bennett development accounts, correct?" The woman checked her computer. "I don't show any client by that name." Rachel left the office, her mind spinning. Another lie. Where were their tax filings going? Who was Martin? She called Olivia from her car. "I need to move faster. Jason's given me a week, but the bank is moving now." "I've been researching," Olivia said. "Based on what you've shown me, this isn't just bad business, it's fraud. He's forged your signature on legally binding documents." "What should I do?" "Document everything. And Rachel, you might need to contact the authorities." Rachel's chest tightened. Going to the police would mean the end of her marriage, and possibly Jason's freedom. Despite everything, the thought brought no satisfaction. At home, Rachel used Jason's birthday to access his email on their shared computer. What she found confirmed her worst fears: messages between Jason and someone named Martin, clearly not a legitimate accountant, discussed creative financing on Signature Solutions. One email explicitly mentioned making it match Rachel's handwriting. There were also emails about moving funds offshore, references to accounts in the Cayman Islands, and discussions of high-interest private loans, likely from loan sharks or other dubious sources. Most disturbing were the emails from the last few weeks, where Jason discussed liquidating their personal assets, including jewelry gifted to Rachel from her grandmother. As she scrolled, a new email notification appeared. It was from their bank, confirming a wire transfer of $17,000 from their joint account. Rachel quickly checked the account online. Their balance was now just $3,245. Jason was moving money fast. Rachel printed key emails, then carefully cleared the browser history. She added the printouts to her growing file of evidence. That evening, Jason arrived home with flowers and takeout from her favorite restaurant. "What's the occasion?" Rachel asked, accepting the bouquet. "Do I need an occasion to treat my brilliant wife?" He kissed her cheek, "especially when she's about to help save my bacon at work." As they ate, Jason was more attentive than he'd been in months, asking about her day, laughing at her jokes. It was like dating Jason again, charming, attentive, seemingly transparent. "So I've been thinking," he said, as they finished dinner, "we should take that trip to Italy. We've been postponing. Maybe next month." Rachel nearly choked on her wine. "All about the cash flow issues." "That's the beauty of it. I've got a deal closing that will solve everything." His eyes gleamed with excitement. "One big client ready to sign. After that, we're golden." The familiar pattern clicked into place. This was how it always went. Problems minimized, solutions promised, celebrations planned prematurely. How had she never seen it before? Sounds wonderful, she lied. The next day brought another shock. Rachel found a letter from their home insurance company. Coverage cancelled due to non-payment. She called immediately. Mrs. Bennett, your policy was cancelled 3 weeks ago. We sent multiple notices. Could you email me copies of those notices? Certainly, we have them addressed to both you and Mr. Bennett. Minutes later, Rachel stared at her screen. Looking at notices Jason had apparently intercepted and hidden. That afternoon, another certified letter arrived. This one from Jefferson Bank, holding the second mortgage on their home. Payment was 60 days overdue. Rachel's file of evidence grew thicker. Hawes' file of evidence grew thicker. On Thursday, Rachel asked to meet Olivia and brought her entire file at the coffee shop. Olivia reviewed everything, her expression growing grimmer with each document. Rachel, this is beyond what I can handle as a family lawyer. This is criminal fraud. What are my options? You need to protect yourself legally. Distance yourself from these fraudulent activities before everything crashes down. How? Rachel's voice cracked. My name is on everything. You file a police report for the forgeries, then a civil suit establishing that you were defrauded, and Olivia hesitated. You should consider divorce proceedings immediately. The word hung in the air between them. Ye'd a divorce. The end of her marriage. The end of the life she'd built. You need to move quickly. Olivia continued. Based on these documents, Jason is accelerating whatever endgame he has planned. Rachel nodded. Numb. He's been moving money, talking about trips abroad. He might be planning to leave without you. The thought struck Rachel like a physical blow. Not just financial betrayal, but personal abandonment. There's something else, Olivia said, lowering her voice. These loan documents. The interest rates are astronomical. These aren't regular bank loans. They're from private lenders. Meaning some of these business associates might not be the type to pursue payment through legal channels only. Rachel remembered Jason's recent jumpiness, the way he checked the locks twice at night, his mysterious phone calls taken in another room. What do I do now? Rachel asked. Go home, act normal, gather any final evidence you need. Then we move, file police reports, contact banks, initiate legal proceedings. I've already drafted the paperwork. That night, Rachel lay awake beside Jason, listening to his steady breathing. How could he sleep so peacefully while their world was burning down around them? In the morning, she found him in his home office, frantically shredding documents. What are you doing? She asked from the doorway. Jason startled. Just clearing old files. Spring cleaning. In October. He forced a laugh. Better late than never. After he left for work, Rachel examined the shredder bin. Mixed with the shreds were fragments of their bank statements, loan documents, and what appeared to be passport photos of Jason. That afternoon, Rachel received a text from an unknown number. And Mrs. Bennett, this is Tom Wilkins from Jefferson Bank. Your husband indicated you'd be bringing a certified check today for the overdue mortgage payment. Our office closes at 5 p.m. Rachel hadn't spoken to Jason since morning. He wasn't answering her calls or texts. At 3:30 p.m., her phone finally buzzed with a message from Jason, handling the Jefferson situation. Don't worry, he'll be home late. Don't wait up. Rachel called Jefferson Bank. This is Rachel Bennett. I understand my husband is making a payment today. No, Mrs. Bennett, Mr. Bennett, he informed us you would be bringing the payment at $17,245 is the amount needed to stop foreclosure proceedings. The exact amount Jason had transferred from their joint account 2 days earlier. Rachel's hands shook as she called Olivia. He's running today. Are you sure? He cleaned out our account. He's shredding documents. And he just tried to send me on a wild goose chase to a bank with money we don't have. Go home, pack what you need. And Rachel, Check for any document that might still have your original signature, anything he might have used as a template to forge others. Rachel rushed home and went straight to their bedroom. In her jewelry box was her grandmother's ring, the one Jason had referenced in emails about liquidating assets. She pocketed it. She checked their safe, empty of cash and documents. In Jason's closet, his passport was missing. As Rachel moved through the house, gathering essential documents, her phone buzzed again. This time it was a bank alert. Another $10,000 transfer from their home equity line of credit to an external account. He was draining everything he could access. Rachel called the bank immediately. "This is Rachel Bennett. I need to freeze all accounts I share with my husband. Mrs. Bennett, we'll need you to come into a branch with identification to process that request. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I'll be there in 20 minutes. As Rachel grabbed her purse, headlights swept across the front window. Jason was home, hours earlier than his text had indicated. Rachel quickly shelved her evidence box and grabbed a magazine, sitting casually on the couch as the front door opened. Jason rushed in, startled to see her. "Rachel, I thought you'd be at Jefferson Bank. They called to say you were handling it." She kept her voice steady. Jason's expression flickered between emotions, calculation, irritation, then smooth charm, miscommunication. "I've got it sorted now." He carried a small suitcase. "Emergency business trip. Philadelphia client needs me there tomorrow morning." "Philadelphia?" Rachel raised an eyebrow. "That's funny, because when the bank called, they mentioned you'd taken out international travel insurance on our credit card yesterday." Jason's facade cracked momentarily. "That's for next month. The Italy trip." "There's not going to be an Italy trip, Jason. Just like there's no Philadelphia meeting." Rachel stood, surprising herself with her steadiness. "Where were you really going?" "Cayman Islands, where you've been moving our money." Jason's charm vanished. "You've been going through my things. You've been forging my signature, stealing my future." They stared at each other. The pretense finally stripped away. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under," Jason said, his voice hardening. "I did what I had to do. For who? Not for us. You were planning to leave me with nothing but debt." Jason's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then moved toward the door. "I don't have time for this now. We'll talk when I get back." "If you leave now, I'm calling the police," Rachel said quietly. Jason paused, then smiled coldly. "With what evidence?"
Your word against mine.
"All those documents show you as a willing participant. Rachel, your signature is on everything." The truth hit Rachel with stunning clarity. He was right. Unless she could prove the forgeries, she would be left holding the bag for all his crimes. As Jason walked out the door, Rachel realized the clock wasn't just ticking. It had run out. Tomorrow, she would have to take her evidence to the police and pray it was enough. 6 weeks later, Rachel sat beside Olivia in courtroom 302 of the Cook County Courthouse, across the aisle. Jason sat with his attorney Martin Powell, the mysterious Martin, from the emails, not an accountant, but a lawyer with a reputation for representing clients with financial troubles. The preliminary hearing for the Midwest Capital lawsuit was about to begin. Jason had returned from his business trip 3 days after their confrontation, only to find the locks changed and divorce papers waiting. Now both the civil suit from Midwest Capital and Rachel's divorce proceedings were moving through the courts simultaneously. "All rise," called the bailiff, as Judge Eleanor Sawyer entered the courtroom. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s with sharp eyes behind rimless glasses, reviewed the documents before her. "This is a civil case brought by Midwest Capital against Jason and Rachel Bennett for defaulting on a $2 million loan. I understand there's a complication with Mrs. Bennett claiming fraud." Jason's attorney stood. "Your Honor, that claim is without merit. Or Mrs. Bennett was fully aware of all financial decisions. She's only crying fraud now to avoid liability." Olivia rose. "Your Honor, We have evidence that Mr. Bennett forged my client's signature on multiple documents, including this loan agreement. Judge Sawyer looked skeptical. Mrs. Bennett claims she didn't sign a document that experts say bears her signature. That's a difficult claim to prove. The hearing proceeded with Midwest Capital's attorney presenting their case, loan documents bearing both signatures, evidence of funds transferred to Bennett development accounts, and missed payments. When Jason took the stand, he portrayed a picture of equal partnership. Rachel and I made all financial decisions together. She understood the risks and rewards of real estate development. We discussed every loan, every investment. His attorney presented emails Rachel had sent Jason over the years, selectively edited to make it appear she was more involved than she actually was. "Did your wife ever express concerns about the Midwest Capital loan?" his attorney asked. "Never," Jason replied smoothly. "In fact, she was excited about the Lincoln Park project. It was her idea to accelerate the timeline, which necessitated the loan." Rachel felt sick. It was all lies, but delivered with such conviction. When Rachel took the stand, she explained her side. "I never signed the Midwest Capital loan. Jason forged my signature after having me sign blank papers during our anniversary dinner." "That's a serious accusation," said Jason's attorney during cross-examination. "Do you have any proof beyond your word?" "I have examples of my authentic signature compared to the forged ones. Yet handwriting experts say the signatures match," he countered, "because they were carefully traced or digitally transferred from authentic documents." Jason's attorney looked skeptical. "Mrs. Bennett, isn't it true that you're simply trying to shield yourself from financial liability now that the investment has soured?" "No, I never knew about this loan until the bank called about missed payments. But you enjoyed the benefits of your husband's business, the house, the cars, the lifestyle." Rachel struggled to maintain composure. "I believed our lifestyle came from legitimate business. Yet you never questioned the source of your comfortable life. Never wondered how your husband afforded it all while you managed the household accounts." Rachel felt the trap closing. She had benefited from their lifestyle. She had chosen not to ask too many questions. In the eyes of the law, that might be enough to make her liable. By midday, things were looking grim for Rachel. Judge Sawyer seemed unconvinced by her claims of forgery, and Midwest Capital's attorney had presented a strong case for joint liability. During the lunch recess, Rachel paced outside the courtroom. "This isn't going well," she told Olivia. "They're making me look complicit." "We knew this would be tough, without hard evidence of forgery," Olivia admitted. "The signatures are too similar for the court to distinguish without more proof." Rachel felt tears threatening. Everything she'd worked for, not just in her marriage, but in her entire career before that, was about to be wiped out by Jason's fraud. "Maybe I should consider the settlement," Rachel said quietly. Midwest Capital had offered to reduce her personal liability if she agreed to liquidate her remaining assets, basically everything she still owned. She would walk away, broke but not completely ruined. "That's admitting liability," Olivia warned, "and it won't help with the other creditors lining up behind Midwest Capital." As they returned to the courtroom, Rachel noticed Jason in deep conversation with Martin Powell. They looked confident, even smug. The afternoon session began with Jason's attorney calling a surprise witness, Thomas Jimenez, the real estate agent who had shown them the Lincoln Park property. "Mr. Jimenez, did you ever meet with the Bennetts about the Lincoln Park property?" asked Martin Powell. "Yes, several times. Both Mr. and Mrs. Bennett." "And did Mrs. Bennett seem knowledgeable about the project?" "Absolutely. She asked detailed questions about zoning, potential returns, financing options. She was quite involved." Rachel stared in shock. She had met Jimenez exactly once at a cocktail party and never discussed business with him. "Objection," called Olivia. "This testimony contradicts my client's statements." "Your Honor," Jason's attorney countered, "this witness has no reason to lie, unlike Mrs. Bennett, who is trying to escape financial responsibility." Judge Sawyer overruled the objection. As the testimony continued, Rachel realized Jason had prepared for this. He had witnesses ready to testify that she had been an active, willing participant in all business decisions. When Jimenez stepped down, Jason's attorney played his final card, a recording. Your Honor, I'd like to present audio evidence of Mrs. Bennett discussing the Midwest Capital loan. Rachel froze. She had never discussed the loan. How could there be a recording? The courtroom listened as a woman's voice. Unmistakably, Rachel said, the Midwest Capital terms look good. $2 million is a lot, but the property's value will cover it. Then Jason's voice. So you're comfortable with this loan? Yes. Let's move forward. Rachel felt the blood drain from her face. That's not. I never said that. Olivia was on her feet immediately. Your Honor, we object to this recording. We've had no opportunity to authenticate it or examine its context. The recording speaks for itself. Jason's attorney argued. That's clearly Mrs. Bennett's voice agreeing to the loan she now denies knowledge of. Judge Sawyer frowned. Mr. Powell, this evidence should have been disclosed during discovery. However, I'll allow it provisionally while giving the defense time to examine it. As the recording played again, Rachel suddenly realized what had happened. Jason had taken snippets of her voice from different conversations and edited them together. The Midwest Capital discussion had probably been about something else entirely. Rachel grabbed Olivia's arm. It's edited. He's taken bits of different conversations. Olivia nodded grimly. We'll need audio experts to prove that. It'll take time. As the day's proceedings wrapped up, Judge Sawyer made her position clear. Based on the evidence presented today, I'm inclined to find both defendants jointly liable for the Midwest Capital loan. However, I'll reserve final judgment until tomorrow to allow Mrs. Bennett's attorney to address the new audio evidence. Outside the courtroom, Rachel felt defeated. He planned this perfectly. The witnesses, the recording, he's making me look like a liar. There's still the forgery evidence, Olivia reminded her, which the judge doesn't find convincing. Without proof that he forged my signature, I'm finished. As they walked to the parking garage, a thought struck Rachel so obvious she stopped mid-step. Rachel, Olivia looked concerned. The signature, Rachel whispered. I've been focusing on proving the forgeries, but there's something more basic I forgot. What do you mean? Rachel's mind raced. I need to go home. There's something I need to check. There's something I need to check. That night, Rachel tore through her remaining files and boxes. The evidence had been in front of her all along. She just hadn't seen its significance. In the back of her planner, in a sealed envelope, was what she needed, the one document that could change everything. Tomorrow, she would finally have her chance. The next morning, Rachel arrived at court, carrying a worn leather portfolio. Dark circles under her eyes betrayed her sleepless night, but her steps were steady as she walked into the courtroom. Jason and his attorney were already seated, reviewing documents and looking confident. When Rachel entered, Jason barely glanced at her. Olivia met Rachel at their table. Did you find what you were looking for? Rachel patted her portfolio. I think so, but I'm not sure it's enough. Before proceedings began, Olivia approached Jason's attorney for a private conversation. Minutes later, she returned, looking grim. They're offering a generous settlement. If you assume partial liability and liquidate your remaining assets, you'll waive pursuing future claims against you. What would that mean practically? You'd lose your car, your remaining investments, access to your retirement funds, but you wouldn't face bankruptcy or further civil actions from Midwest Capital. Rachel closed her eyes briefly, and the other creditors. This deal doesn't address them. They could still come after you. The bailiff called the court to order as Judge Sawyer entered. Before we continue, have the parties made any progress towards settlement? Jason's attorney stood. Yes, Your Honor. We've offered Mrs. Bennett terms that would resolve Midwest Capital's claims against her specifically, while allowing Mr. Bennett to address the business liability separately. Judge Sawyer turned to Olivia and the defendant's position. My client is considering the offer but has concerns about its scope, Olivia replied. Very well, we'll proceed while you consider. In Mr. Powell, you may call your next witness. Jason took the stand again, describing in convincing detail how Rachel had been an enthusiastic partner in all their business ventures. Rachel always reviewed the final numbers, he testified. She has a financial background. She understood the risks better than most spouses would. During cross-examination, Olivia attacked the edited recording from the previous day. Mr. Bennett, did you manipulate that audio to make it appear? My client approved a loan she never discussed. Absolutely not, Jason replied calmly. That was a genuine conversation about the Midwest Capital loan. When and where did this conversation take place? Jason hesitated briefly. In our home office, approximately 3 days before signing the loan documents. And you just happened to be recording this ordinary conversation. I often record business discussions to reference details later. Olivia turned to the judge. Your Honor, we request all of Mr. Bennett's recordings be submitted for forensic analysis. Jason's attorney objected immediately. The original recording device was unfortunately lost during Mr. Bennett's business travel. Yeesh! We only have the clip presented yesterday. How convenient, Olivia remarked. Judge Sawyer frowned. Counselor, sarcasm doesn't help your case. By mid-morning, the momentum had shifted further against Rachel. Midwest Capital presented additional evidence of Rachel's supposed involvement. Emails to the loan officer, urgent sent from her account, but written by Jason, her presence at the closing, which never actually happened, even a thank you note, supposedly from Rachel following the loan approval. During the lunch recess, Olivia was blunt. They've built a strong case, Rachel. Without conclusive proof of forgery, the judge is likely to find you jointly liable. What about my document? Rachel asked. Olivia sighed. I've reviewed what you found. It shows your authentic signature. Yes, but it doesn't prove the loan signature was forged. The differences are too subtle for a non-expert to discern. But it's not my signature on the loan. I believe you, but proving it is another matter. The settlement offer expires at 2 p.m. After that, they'll push for full liability. Rachel stared out the window, watching people passing by on the sidewalk below, people with normal lives not facing financial ruin because they trusted the wrong person. What would you do? She asked quietly. Honestly, the settlement is bad, but what you're facing if you lose is worse. Rachel nodded slowly. Then I'll take the deal. Olivia squeezed her hand. I'll let them know. When court resumed, Olivia addressed the judge. Your Honor, my client is prepared to accept the settlement offered by Midwest Capital, with one condition. She would like to make a statement for the record. Judge Sawyer nodded. Proceed, Mrs. Bennett. Rachel rose, her portfolio clutched in her hands. She had accepted defeat, but something still burned inside her, demanding to be said. Your Honor, I'm accepting this settlement because I see no alternative. But I want the record to show that I never knowingly signed the Midwest Capital loan documents. I've been betrayed by my husband and by a legal system that can't distinguish between a victim and an accomplice. Jason stared straight ahead, not meeting her eyes. His attorney whispered something to him, and he nodded slightly. As Rachel returned to her seat, a court officer approached the bench with an urgent message for Judge Sawyer. The judge read the note, then looked up with a frown. Counsel approached the bench. After a brief, hushed conversation, the judge addressed the courtroom. Due to an unexpected development, we'll recess until tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. The settlement discussions should continue in the interim. As the court adjourned, Rachel turned to Olivia, confused. What happened? I don't know, Olivia admitted, but something's changed. Outside the courtroom, a man in a dark suit approached them. Mrs. Bennett, Agent Donovan, FBI. I'd like to speak with you about your husband's business dealings. Rachel sat across from Agent Donovan in a small conference room at the courthouse, Olivia at her side. The agent's expression was professionally neutral, as he reviewed Rachel's documents. Other tea. So you've suspected forgery for how long? He asked. I only discovered it 6 weeks ago, but I believe it's been happening for years. Agent Donovan nodded. Mrs. Bennett, I'm going to be direct. Your husband is under investigation for financial fraud, extending well beyond your personal situation. Wire fraud, securities fraud, money laundering. Rachel felt the room tilt slightly. I had no idea. We believe you, but we need your help. What kind of help? Evidence connecting your husband to certain transactions. The investigation has been ongoing for 8 months, but we've hit roadblocks. Mr. Bennett is careful. Rachel thought of her file box, the evidence she'd been collecting. I have some financial documents, emails. Those would be helpful, but what we really need is evidence of his intent to defraud, proof that he knowingly forged documents and misrepresented transactions. Olivia interjected. My client is currently facing significant liability. What does cooperation mean for her position? If Mrs. Bennett assists our investigation, we would inform the civil court of her cooperation. It doesn't guarantee immunity from civil liability, but it would distinguish her position from her husband's. Rachel's mind raced. This could be her way out, not just from the Midwest Capital lawsuit, but from all the liability Jason had created. But something still bothered her. Why are you approaching me now in the middle of this case? Agent Donovan exchanged glances with his colleague. We've been monitoring Mr. Bennett's activities. Recent movements suggest he's preparing to leave the country permanently, with substantial assets. The settlement offer suddenly made sense. Jason wasn't being generous. He was creating a distraction while he finalized his escape. When? Rachel asked. We believe within the next 48 hours. Rachel thought about the document in her portfolio, the one Olivia had dismissed as insufficient. Maybe in the context of a larger fraud investigation, it would have more significance. I have something that might help, she said, opening her portfolio. It's not just about proving my signature was forged. It's about proving Jason never intended for me to know what I was signing. She withdrew a single sheet of paper, a loan modification document from 3 years earlier. This is the only major financial document I actually did sign during our marriage. Notice anything unusual? Agent Donovan examined it. The signature page. Exactly. It's just the signature page. No terms, no conditions, no loan details.
Jason told me it was a routine refinance on better terms.
I trusted him. In signed, just the signature page. Rachel leaned forward. Don't you see, he never showed me complete documents. He had me sign blank or partial pages that he could attach to whatever he wanted later. That's why the forgeries look so convincing. He didn't need to forge most of them. That's why the forgeries look so convincing. He didn't need to forge most of them. He just attached my real signature to fraudulent documents. Agent Donovan looked up sharply. Do you have the original document this signature page was supposed to be part of? No. Jason handled all that. But I have emails where he specifically asks me to just sign the last page, because the rest is just legal boilerplate. The agent nodded slowly. This could be significant. It establishes a pattern of deception. Will it be enough to help me in court tomorrow? Possibly. But we need more, especially if we want to catch Mr. Bennett before he leaves the country. Rachel made her decision. I'll help you. Whatever you need. That night, Rachel returned home with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in months. Agent Donovan had outlined their plan. Rachel would continue with the settlement negotiations while wearing a recording device. If she could get Jason to admit to the forgeries or his plans to leave the country, they would have what they needed. It was risky. If Jason suspected anything, he might accelerate his plans, or worse. As Rachel packed the last of her evidence into a secure box for the FBI, she found herself standing in front of the mirror. The woman looking back at her wasn't the trusting, supportive wife she'd been for 5 years. This woman had sharp eyes and a determined set to her jaw. Tomorrow would change everything, one way or another. Rachel took a deep breath and practiced what she would say when she faced Jason in court. This time, she wouldn't be silent. The courtroom buzzed with unusual energy. The next morning, word had spread about FBI agents questioning witnesses in the hallway. Rachel sat at the defense table, her posture rigid but composed. The small recording device taped to her side felt foreign against her skin. Olivia leaned close. "Are you ready?" Rachel nodded. "As I'll ever be." When Jason entered with his attorney, Rachel studied him carefully. He looked immaculate as always in his tailored suit, but there were subtle signs of strain, his jaw slightly too tight, a faint sheen of sweat at his temples. He knows something's happening, Rachel thought. He just doesn't know what. Judge Sawyer called the court to order. "Counsel, I understand a settlement was being discussed. What is the status?" Jason's attorney rose. "Your Honor, we've reached an agreement in principle, as Mrs. Bennett will accept partial liability in exchange for Midwest Capital, waiving further claims against her personally." "Is this accurate, Counselor?" the judge asked Olivia. "My client has reconsidered her position, Your Honor. We're no longer accepting the settlement." Jason's head snapped toward Rachel, his eyes narrowing. Judge Sawyer sighed. "Then we'll continue with the proceedings. Mr. Powell, call your next witness." "Your Honor, given the late stage of these proceedings, we believe the facts are clear. We ask for a ruling on the evidence already presented." The judge considered this. "Mrs. Ramirez, do you have additional evidence to present before I rule?" Olivia stood. "Yes, Your Honor. My client has new evidence directly relevant to the forgery claim." Jason's attorney objected immediately. "Your Honor, introducing new evidence at this stage is inappropriate. The defense has had ample time to present their case. The evidence recently came to light." Olivia countered. "It's central to the question of fraud before the court." Judge Sawyer considered both arguments. "I'll allow it, but this is the final evidence I'll consider before ruling." Rachel felt her heart pounding as Olivia called her to the stand. The courtroom seemed to shrink around her as she took the oath. "Mrs. Bennett," Olivia began, "you've claimed your husband forged your signature on the Midwest Capital loan documents. What evidence do you have to support this claim?" Rachel opened her portfolio. "Throughout our marriage, Jason never showed me complete loan documents. He would have me sign blank signature pages or tell me I was signing something entirely different." She produced the loan modification document, just a signature page with Rachel's authentic signature. "This is the only financial document I knowingly signed during our marriage. Notice it's only a signature page, with no terms attached." Olivia submitted the document as evidence, along with emails from Jason specifically instructing Rachel to just sign the last page of various documents. "And these emails," Olivia continued, "show a pattern of Mr. Bennett deliberately concealing the content of documents while obtaining your signature." Jason shifted in his seat, whispering urgently to his attorney. "Mrs. Bennett," Olivia asked, "when did you first learn about the Midwest Capital loan?" "When they called about missed payments. Until then, I had no knowledge of any $2 million loan." "And the recording presented yesterday where you supposedly discussed this loan?" Rachel straightened. "That recording is edited from different conversations. I never discussed a Midwest Capital loan because I didn't know it existed." During cross-examination, Jason's attorney attacked aggressively. "Mrs. Bennett, you benefited from your husband's business success for years. Now that there are financial troubles, you're claiming ignorance." "I'm claiming I was lied to," Rachel replied steadily. "I believed our lifestyle came from legitimate business. Yet you signed this loan modification document without reading it. Doesn't that show negligence on your part?" "It shows trust," Rachel corrected. "Misplaced trust in my husband." As Rachel stepped down, Judge Sawyer called a brief recess. In the hallway, Olivia conferred with Agent Donovan, who had been observing from the back of the courtroom. "We need more," he said quietly. "The signature page is compelling, but it doesn't directly prove the Midwest Capitol forgery. What about the recording device? Olivia asked. Nothing useful yet. We need Bennett to incriminate himself more clearly. When court resumed, Jason took the stand for redirect examination. His attorney led him through careful questioning to re-establish his version of events. Mr. Bennett, did you ever have your wife sign blank pages, as she claims? Never, Jason replied. Rachel was always fully informed about our financial decisions. And the loan modification document showing only a signature page, that was just a copy for our records. Rachel saw the full document before signing. The questioning continued, with Jason calmly refuting each of Rachel's claims. He was practiced, prepared, and lying with absolute conviction. During Olivia's cross-examination, she pressed harder. Mr. Bennett, when was the last time you accessed your offshore account in the Cayman Islands? Jason's attorney shot to his feet. Objection. There's no evidence of any such account. This is harassment. Sustained, said Judge Sawyer. Counselor, stick to matters before this court. Olivia shifted tactics. Mr. Bennett, you testified that the recording presented yesterday was a genuine conversation about the Midwest Capitol loan. Where and when exactly did this conversation take place? In our home office, about 3 days before signing the loan. What time of day? Jason hesitated. Evening, after dinner. And what exactly was said leading up to the portion we heard? I don't recall the entire conversation. Convenient, Olivia remarked. Mr. Bennett, are you planning to leave the country in the next 48 hours? Objection. Jason's attorney nearly shouted. Your Honor, Olivia said calmly, Mr. Bennett's plans are directly relevant to these proceedings. If he intends to leave the jurisdiction while this matter is pending. Judge Sawyer frowned. I'll allow it. The witness will answer. Jason forced a laugh. Of course not. I have business here. No plans to travel to, say, the Cayman Islands, or perhaps Panama. Jason's jaw tightened. I have no immediate travel plans. The questioning continued. With Olivia probing inconsistencies in Jason's story, he maintained his composure, but Rachel could see the strain growing. Finally, Olivia asked, Mr. Bennett, you claim your wife was fully involved in all financial decisions. Why then did you need to edit together a recording to make it appear she discussed a loan, rather than presenting an authentic, complete conversation? I didn't edit anything, Jason insisted, color rising in his face, and that recording is genuine. Then why not provide the entire conversation or other recordings of similar discussions? As my attorney explained, the original recording device was lost. Olivia paused, then changed direction, abruptly. One final question, Mr. Bennett. Who is Elaine Watts? The color drained from Jason's face. Elaine Watts, the name Rachel had discovered in emails, apparently someone Jason was planning to meet abroad. From his expression, the name clearly meant something significant. I don't recall anyone by that name, he said stiffly. Really? Not the woman you purchased 2 first-class tickets to Grand Cayman for, departing tomorrow night? Objection. Jason's attorney interjected. This is beyond the scope of these proceedings. But the damage was done. A murmur ran through the courtroom, and Jason's composed facade cracked visibly. As Jason stepped down, Rachel felt the atmosphere in the courtroom shift. Judge Sawyer was watching Jason with new scrutiny, and several people had entered the back of the courtroom, FBI agents. Rachel realized. Judge Sawyer addressed both attorneys. I've heard sufficient testimony and reviewed the evidence presented. Before I rule, does either party wish to make a final statement? Jason's attorney declined. Olivia nodded to Rachel, who rose slowly from her seat. This was the moment. The FBI needed Jason to incriminate himself, and Rachel had one last chance to make that happen. Your Honor, Rachel began. I'd like to address my husband directly, if I may. The judge nodded her permission. Rachel turned to face Jason, who stared back with a mixture of defiance and wariness. Jason, for 5 years I trusted you completely. I signed whatever you asked, believed whatever you told me, supported you however you needed. Rachel's voice was steady, each word carefully chosen. Even when I found the loan statements, the foreign account transfers, the ticket reservations for you and Elaine, I wanted to believe there was an explanation. Jason's eyes widened slightly at the mention of the tickets. But there's one document you never found, Rachel continued, reaching into her portfolio. The original Midwest Capital loan application, the real one, dated 3 months before the forged version. She held up a paper that looked nearly identical to the loan document entered into evidence, but with one critical difference. This version has only your signature, Jason. You applied for this loan alone initially, but were rejected without a cosigner. Rachel's voice grew stronger. So you created a new version with my forged signature. I found this original in your golf bag last month. It was a calculated risk. There was no original loan application. The FBI had found no evidence of a prior submission, but Rachel was betting on Jason's reaction, not the document itself. Jason half rose from his chair. That's not. Where did you get that? The words burst out before his attorney could stop him. From the same place I got the records of your offshore accounts, the passport you had made under Richard Miller's name, and the property deed for the house in Grand Cayman. Each detail was fabricated, drawn from fragments Rachel had pieced together from his emails and files. Jason was on his feet now. You're lying. There's no way you could. Mr. Bennett, Judge Sawyer called sharply. Sit down immediately. But Jason was unraveling. That document is fake. I never submitted a loan application without her signature. The words hung in the air, a tacit admission that the joint application had been falsified. Rachel locked eyes with Jason. You just admitted it. The joint application was forged. The courtroom erupted. Jason's attorney tried desperately to control the damage while Agent Donovan moved forward. Within moments, FBI agents had surrounded Jason. Jason Bennett, Donovan announced, you're under arrest for wire fraud, financial institution fraud, and making false statements to a financial institution. As the agents led Jason away, he stared at Rachel with a mixture of rage and disbelief. The man who had manipulated her for years couldn't comprehend how she had outmaneuvered him. Judge Sawyer gavelled for order. In light of these developments, this court will recess the civil proceedings, pending the outcome of criminal investigations. Mrs. Bennett, you are ordered not to dispose of any assets until this matter is fully resolved. As the courtroom cleared, Rachel remained seated. The enormity of what had just happened washing over her. She had lost her marriage, a comfortable life, and possibly still faced financial repercussions. But for the first time in years, she had found her voice and the truth. 3 months later, Rachel stood at the window of her small apartment, watching snow fall on the Chicago streets below. The view wasn't as spectacular as the one from the Victorian home she'd shared with Jason, but it was hers, honestly, hers. The kettle whistled in the kitchen. Rachel prepared her tea and carried it to the dining table, which was spread with documents from her new job as a financial analyst with a non-profit that helped victims of financial fraud. The irony wasn't lost on her. Her phone rang, Olivia calling with updates. The prosecutor offered Jason a plea deal, Olivia reported. 10 years with possibility of parole after 7, in exchange for returning assets and cooperating against his business associates. Is he taking it? His attorney is pushing for it. Without a deal, he's looking at 20+ years. The evidence is overwhelming once they got access to his encrypted files. Rachel sipped her tea. And Midwest Capital. That's the good news. Since Jason admitted to forging your signature during his FBI interviews, they're withdrawing all claims against you personally. The judge officially removed you as a defendant last week. Relief washed over Rachel. The civil case had been in limbo while the criminal investigation proceeded. This was the first definitive good news in months. What about the other creditors? Most are following Midwest's lead. You'll still have some financial impact. The joint accounts, the house, anything that was legitimately in both names, but you won't be held liable for the fraudulent debts. It wasn't a perfect outcome. Rachel had lost their house and most of their assets in the aftermath, but she'd kept her retirement account, her grandmother's jewelry, and most importantly, her freedom from Jason's crimes. "Have you heard anything about Elaine Watts?" Rachel asked. Olivia hesitated. They found her. She was not what anyone expected. Meaning, she wasn't Jason's girlfriend. She was his sister, half-sister, actually. Different last name, because they had different fathers. She's been working with him for years, handling the offshore accounts. Rachel sat back, processing this new information. So there was never another woman? Not that they found evidence of. It seems Jason's true love was money, not romance. After hanging up, Rachel opened her laptop to check her bank account, a habit born from months of financial anxiety. Her new salary was modest compared to the lifestyle she'd had with Jason, but it was honest money that was truly hers. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. It was Marcus Devereaux, one of Jason's former business partners, and now a key witness in the prosecution's case. "I can't stay long," he said, remaining in the doorway. "Just wanted to let you know they froze the Cayman account. Your evidence made the difference." Rachel had never been sure how much to trust Marcus. He'd approached her after Jason's arrest, claiming he'd been manipulated too, but she suspected his cooperation was more about saving himself than justice. "Was any of it real?" she asked suddenly. "The business, the success Jason claimed?" Marcus sighed.
"Some."
The Lincoln Park project was legitimate, just underfunded. Jason had vision but got greedy, started cutting corners, then outright fraud. "And you never noticed?" "I noticed something was off. But," he shrugged, "like you, I believed what I wanted to believe." After Marcus left, Rachel returned to her window, watching the snowfall deepen. 6 months ago, she'd been a different person. Trusting, oblivious, defined by her relationship with Jason. Now, she stood alone but clear-eyed. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Mrs. Bennett, this is Agent Donovan. Final evidence review tomorrow at 10 a.m. if you're available." Rachel texted back her confirmation. The case against Jason was nearing its conclusion, and with it, this chapter of her life. That evening, Rachel met Olivia for dinner at a modestly priced restaurant, a far cry from the upscale establishments she once frequented with Jason. To new beginnings, Olivia toasted, raising her glass. "And to painful but necessary endings," Rachel added. They talked about the case, about Rachel's new job, about the future as they finished their meal. Olivia handed Rachel an envelope. "What's this?" "Open it." Inside was a check, not a large amount, but significant. "The FBI's asset recovery team found this in one of Jason's personal accounts," Olivia explained. "It was originally your money, transferred from your pre-marriage investment account. They've released it back to you." Rachel stared at the check. It wasn't enough to restore what she'd lost, but it was something, a small piece of justice. "There's something else you should know," Olivia said. "The non-profit you're working for, they want to create a new division focused on helping victims navigate the legal aftermath of financial fraud. They're considering you to head it." "Me? Oh, but I'm still putting my own life back together." "That's exactly why you're perfect for it. You understand what these people are going through in a way no one else can." Later that night, back in her apartment, Rachel opened the small box where she kept mementos from her previous life. Photos, cards, a few pieces of jewelry, too meaningful to sell despite their financial value. Among them was the document that had changed everything, the signature page she'd presented in court, proving Jason's pattern of deception. Such a simple thing, yet it had been the key to her freedom. Rachel closed the box and placed it on a high shelf. She would keep these reminders, not to dwell on the past, but to remember how far she'd come. Tomorrow, she would meet with Agent Donovan. Next week, she would discuss the new position at the nonprofit, and someday, Perhaps not soon, but eventually, she would trust again. More wisely, more carefully, but without letting Jason's betrayal define her. Outside, the snow continued to fall, covering Chicago in a clean, white blanket. A new season, a new beginning. Rachel Bennett stood alone in her apartment, smaller than her former home, but built on truth rather than lies, and that made all the difference. That's the end of the story. What would you have done if you were in Rachel's position at the beginning? Go ahead and share your thoughts in the comments. If you want more stories like this one, hit subscribe. And now, go ahead and enjoy our next story.